Welcome, everybody, again to another edition of Acoustic Northeast, bringing you the singers, songwriters, and acoustic music scene of the Northeast United States. We talk about the music scene and topics that affect the artist. We interview singer-songwriters who play live for you in studio. I am George Malice, your host for the day. Our co-host Dave Goldenberg is currently on vacation. We are brought to you by hearithhere.com, also by Hudson Harding Folk Radio Promoters and WBXO Internet Radio. You can listen to our show wherever you get your podcasts, and please subscribe. We are also on YouTube and acousticnortheast.com. We post the song performances of our guests on our YouTube channel. Listen also to our Acoustic Northeast Spotify playlist, which features past and future musicians from the podcast. And today we have a special guest in studio, and it's not my home studio in Brewster. We are coming to you from Martha's Vineyard in Edgartown.
No, in West Tisbury.
West Tisbury. I'm already wrong. Mm-hmm. And our guest is Peter Halperin. And Peter, we are in his studio, which is called Wood Stove Studios.
Correct.
Okay, I got that right anyway.
That's 1 out of 2 is pretty good, man.
Yeah, not bad. So anyway, Peter, we're going to ask you to kick the show off with a tune. So
all right.
Go for it.
Why don't we do that?
And please tell us what you're going to play.
Well, thanks, George. This is fun. I appreciate you coming to my place to do this. So I'm going to play 3 songs, and I figured I'd sort of span my songwriting lifespan. So this first one is called Lazy Joe. I wrote when I was 17. I'll let the audience guess how long ago that was.
Okay.
It was a while. Lazy Joe, standing on a corner, watching all your warnings, your evenings, your mornings. And Lazy Joe, just what do you know? I said, Lazy Joe, drives you crazy, Joe, counting all your reasons, missing all your seasons. Lazy Joe, just what do you know? If in a way you look, you think you can get hooked, you don't give it a glance. You can get the best, give your head a rest, start feeling life's romance. Well, if in a way you look, you think you can get hooked, don't give it a glance. You can get the best, just give that head a rest, start feeling life's romance. I said, Lazy Joe, it'll all work out. Love comes to those who make love, that's what it's about. I said, Lazy Joe, I said, Lazy Joe, I said, Lazy Joe, it's time to put on your show.
All right, very cool. That's Peter Halperin. And you wrote that when you were 17 years old. Lazy Joe.
Yeah.
And we won't tell everybody how old you are. Let them figure it out through our conversation or whatever. But
I don't mind.
you don't mind?
You can
Okay.
ask me
Then
straight out. I won't mind.
we can tell everybody if you want to. That's up to you. But
Yeah, I'm proud of it. So.
you know what? We should be proud of our age because we've made it this far, right?
That's right.
So
That's right.
that's a wonderful thing. So being that you wrote that at 17, give me a little background how you kind of started off musically. What drew you to it?
Well, I was always deep into music ever since early childhood. And it was always kind of the thing for me. And
was there music in your home growing up?
there was. My dad was a fantastic singer, though very much closeted in a sense, but unbelievable voice.
What kind of music was in the home?
Frank Sinatra, Ella Fitzgerald, that kind of stuff, show music, Broadway music. My mom was an excellent piano player. I started, studying piano at a very young age and kind of took it like from the age of 4 or 5 to about 10 and kind of left it for reasons I'm not going to get completely into in this show.
That's fine.
But it wasn't a good scene in a lot of ways. But I just kept with the music. I sort of got back into it a lot as I hit my early teenage years and all that great stuff was happening. I picked up the guitar, and that was all by ear. And, listened to the folkies and also, blues practice was huge. Al Cooper was huge in terms of teaching me how to do it. At that point, I was playing also a lot of keyboard.
Yeah.
And I started songwriting about the age of 14 or 15. And as I was wending my way through high school and thinking what's next and planning on going to college, I was really interested in just staying with the music business. And I had started to, slept down from New Rochelle to Greenwich Village all the time. I was playing a lot of the first the open mics and even was getting some gigs at all those hot spots. And I almost didn't go to college. I had done a couple of performances, and a guy said, we could get you to work. And I kind of, my momentum was so much in that more traditional in some ways, but also I wanted a good place where I could move to and actually afford to be away from that place. I wanted to get out of New Rochelle. Let's put it that way.
Well, I left too, so I don't blame you.
Yeah. But Lazy Joe was written within the first few weeks of my getting to college. And it was about a theme that I've been wrestling with ever since. Hey, man, you want to be a musician? Jump in.
Yeah.
Right? And so there's a bit of that in that lyric. And
so what are we talking about here? We're talking about the late 60s?
I was doing the music that I was just describing, 68, 69, and I started college in 70.
And where did you go to school?
Swarthmore College outside of Philadelphia.
Sure.
And actually, there was a great music scene there. I hooked up with a real good singer-songwriter named Steve Smith, and we had a pretty successful duo called Peter and Smitty. And let's see, I don't know how much time we have to go into all the things that'll pop in my memory, but Swarthmore had a really great folk festival, one of the big folk festivals for at least 20 years before I got there. And because I got there having done so much music, and I had friends that were in the business and did sound at, major places in New York, and I sort of knew what was going on, I got to run that folk festival even as a freshman. It was Mississippi Fred McDowell, Happy and Artie Traum, and Peter Halperin.
Well, you got to meet all these guys since you were running it.
Yeah, and before I was just sort of up close because of good friends that I had that I was just sort of mentioning that were in the business.
I think a lot rubs off when you get to rub shoulders with people like that.
No question.
I think in some ways you kind of learn how to write also. I mean, you didn't go to school for music.
That's right.
So it's like, we have, we interview a bunch of people, and I have to tell you, the vast majority of the people that we've interviewed grew up with music in the home.
Yes.
Some were classically trained or whatever it happens to be, but most of them learned how to write by listening. Yeah. And that's what it came down. And that's where you came in too.
I totally agree. And another element that I think, comes out of being with such people is that you see that this is what people can do. This is what people do. It kind of normalizes it, So the idea that you can just write a song isn't quite as foreign as it might be if you weren't hanging around a lot of people who were doing it.
I think it ups your game, too.
And it ups your game, too. No question.
Because when you have that level that you're striving to reach, you're left with no choice. Well, you are left with a choice. You could just bag it, or you can, or you can work. Yeah, and that's what you've done with your songwriting. So as we've gotten past school, then we get into your professional life a little bit. Do you want to talk about that a little?
I'll be glad to. It wasn't just a straight line. I dropped out of Swarthmore, went to New York, and was playing full time for a couple of years.
Dynamite.
And I was playing keyboard actually in a pretty popular, unusual sort of country music world band. It's the best way to describe it. Backing up a songwriter named Susan Bader. And, we were the regular Friday night act at Folk City for a year.
Fantastic.
And so I was right in the middle of all that stuff.
That explains your some of your country music.
Yeah, absolutely.
Definitely.
Ramblin' Jack Elliott.
Oh, wow.
Right? I sat and heard him play. This guy's from Brooklyn, too. I did start out in Brooklyn. I like country
The
music.
west side of Brooklyn.
Yeah, right. Exactly. The far west. Yeah. So there was always been, Loving Spoonful was very big on that one, too. Sebastian stuff in those late 60 years made a deep imprint on me.
Yeah.
And it's
He's still
there.
doing it.
He's still doing it.
He's in Woodstock.
I know. I know. It's
Yeah.
great. It's great. So I did the music full time for a few years, and then decided I was going to take another turn, and I went back to college. And without going into all the details, I'll just say it had something to do with the precariousness of the culture in New York, at least at that time, as a full-time musician. And I'm talking a lot of people into heavy drugs, especially heroin.
Yeah.
And so all these great players and people that I was hanging with, many of them, that's pretty much what they wanted to do. And I guess my antennae were up enough to know just that was not going to be a good choice for me. And it was really a very quick decision to leave the scene, go back to school. And once I was back in school, I had, thought about different things to do, but I talked about the fact that you learn about what's possible from the people that you're being modeled by. And my family was steeped with doctors. My father's a doctor, many uncles, cousins, and so medicine was just part of normal life. I was always much more kind of interested in psychological factors than purely biological ones, and I ended up becoming a psychiatrist. But so I went through, college and then went to medical school and became a psychiatrist, and it was a very rich, interesting career. But it sure kept me away from music, and that was sure frustrating, and I tried to balance it as much as I could. I mean, I was doing that stuff for well over 40 years.
Sure.
And, kind of carving my own bit of a niche in terms of sort of bringing psychiatry into medical settings and kind of making it more universal and making it more normal, and part of really treating medical illnesses because stress, for lack of a better word, is not good for the body. And so that was the kind of thing I pursued, and I ended up doing a lot of teaching as well. But I kept the music going as much as possible, mostly the songwriting. And so there wasn't a year that I didn't write at least a couple of songs, and sometimes it was more. And I did, try and keep my toes in the water as I had before and get songs out to see if I could, hit it in that way as a songwriter. Came close. The closest I came was I did a demo of a song that the guy who we hired to sing it, a guy named Benny Diggs, sang it and didn't even tell me. And I got a call 2 days later from the guy who did produce it. Well, Benny is producing George Benson's next album. Wow. And he brought it to George. George loves it. George wants to do it. He may even make it the title song. I said, oh, my God. 3 weeks later, we find out that George was under contract that he didn't realize with another company, wasn't going to be working with that crew. The whole thing got erased. And that's another reason that the music business was temperamentally challenging for me, as it is for anybody who has to be able to put up with disappointment and frustrations and near misses. I'm better equipped for it now because at this age, who cares? Yeah. But so that was part of it. But I kept it up, and then maybe to kind of tie into where we are now, I discovered the Vineyard in the late 80s just because people I knew were vacationing, and I came. And one of the first things I found out was it grows and attracts musicians like a magnet, and artists of all kinds, painters and every medium. And it felt so good and comfortable and familiar to be around so many wonderful musicians that it was, the pull for me to think about actually just living here. And so
when did that happen? When did you make your move up to the Vineyard?
We came here in the early 90s, about 1990. I had been in the Boston area and practicing up there, and I just uprooted, came here, did some practicing in this general area but was playing a lot of music for several years, maybe about 4 years, between about 90 and 94, 95. And then I got kind of recruited to do a teaching thing at Stony Brook Medical School. Somebody had heard me talk about this idea of bringing psychiatry into places like cardiac rehab programs and just making it part of what you do, because it's a risk factor just like diet and exercise or working with other medical patients. And Stony Brook had decided they wanted to kind of get on that bandwagon, and they wanted a course for it, which didn't exist in medical school. And I just couldn't say no. So went out there and inhabited Long Island. To all you Long Islanders, love you. Didn't really love Long Island that much, but I wouldn't have loved anywhere having just left the Vineyard.
Well, I can't blame you.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's something.
But that became a thing, and I was there for about 10, 12 years, and then...
But you never lost your love
for
the Vineyard. Did you have it in the back of your head that this was where you were going to end up?
Oh, absolutely.
You did.
We already had the property. We kind of slowly developed it and put our main house up about 22 years ago. It's a detail that's not that important. When we were here, we were living in a house behind this lot. It was two separate lots that we sold, and then we just developed this. But we always knew we'd be back.
That's great.
We had very close friends right from the beginning. It was our major kind of social network, really. And then just to try and get it all back to the present as for so many people, when COVID came, it opened the door to do remote practice. And so at that time, I was actually practicing in Northampton, Massachusetts. And I was able to do the kind of practice very readily at a distance online and on Zoom. And once we realized that was possible, I said, I'm going to move here as soon as possible. And now we're getting close to where we are in this building.
Yeah.
The building we're in didn't exist until 4.5 years ago. And that was when really 5, when we decided we're moving here. And
I'm going to take pictures of it, and I'm going to put them up for when we air your interview. We're going to.
Oh my God, it's such a mess. Well, people will see a lot of guitars. Yeah, absolutely. And one thing that they may see is I have a really wonderful Steinway B grand piano, and I had gotten it when we were in Northampton, and actually was spending years just doing classical music on it, kind of getting back to my roots. And it simply wasn't going to fit into our small house.
Right.
And so the idea, well, I wonder if I can get permission to put a studio up in terms of zoning, and got the guy who knew the answers and actually who ended up building it, and he said yes. And as soon as he said yes, and I realized this was going to happen, I absolutely knew that this was going to be what it became, a community resource for year-round shows, and that I was going to put a recording studio in as well. And all of it kind of came together and flowed from there.
Fantastic. I'm going to ask you to do another song, and when we come back after that song, I want to talk about the studio. I want to talk a lot about your album that you released in 24.
Love all of that. Thank you, George.
So can you tell us, get yourself ready to...
all right. You'll hear a little change because I'm changing mics.
And please intro the song and get yourself going. Again, you're listening to Acoustic Northeast Podcast. Our guest in studio, at his studio, is Peter Halperin, over at Wood Stove Studios. Fantastic room.
So we're going to jump ahead That first song, okay, I'll tell you, I wrote that song about 57 years ago.
Ouch. That's fantastic.
Okay. And this song I wrote relatively recently, 15 years ago. It's called One Man's Poison. One man's healing make another man ill. One man's savior get another man killed. One man's nightmare give another a thrill. One man's poison is another man's pill. One man's poison is another man's pill. One girl's jewelry is another girl's chain. One girl's losses are another girl's gain. One girl's voices keep another girl sane. One girl's pleasure is another girl's pain. Yeah, it is. One girl's pleasure is another girl's pain. There ain't no doubt about it. We think that life is just a game. Well, the winner gets to sing and shout while the rest go down in flame. One man's castle is another man's cave. And one girl's treasure make another a slave. One man's sentence keep another man safe. One girl's garden, one girl's garden, one girl's garden is another girl's grave. There ain't no doubt about it. We think that life's just a game. Well, the winner gets a sing and shout while the rest go down in flame. One man's healing make another man ill. One man's savior get a lot of men killed. One man's nightmare give another a thrill. One man's poison is one man's poison. One man's poison is another man's pill.
Wow. Fantastic.
Oh, thank you.
That's Peter Halperin, One Man's Poison. That's a live version in studio today, and it's also on his album, Bring on the Storm, which, Peter, you recorded. Well, you released it in 2024. I wanted to talk about, I told you before, we interview a lot of people, and a lot of people self-produce. You did not self-produce. You went extremely on the other end of self-production.
I sure did.
Let's talk about your producer and what he brought to the table, because he actually quoted and called your album a masterpiece. And I have to say, I've listened and listened now.
Thank you.
And Fred is right. Well, tell us about Fred Mollin.
Well, Fred, who was sitting in that chair yesterday.
Oh, he was.
He's here on the island. He still spent a lot of time out here. He used to spend a lot more when he had his own place. And really the reason I went the other way is that the other way met me more than halfway. And so the way it developed was Fred Mollin, who I'll describe in a little bit more detail in a second, has a brother named Larry Mollin, who's also a fabulously talented artist, a playwright, a novelist, a poet, and an extremely successful TV writer. And the two of them were a tour de force, doing all kinds of creative stuff in Toronto and all over the place for years. But Larry and I got together that summer before I did the album, back in 2023, became friends. And he said, "Oh, my brother Larry's going to be coming to visit. And by the way, he's a big producer, and but don't be disappointed if he doesn't want to check out your music, because he gets overwhelmed by these things." Okay, so that was the context. But he brought him over one afternoon, and we clicked like that. For one thing, he walked into the space, and now this is a guy who's been living and breathing in the great recording studios of Nashville and the world, but the feeling of a home place like this in this space just kind of called to him. So he was already kind of softened up. And I said, what the heck? I'm going to play a couple songs for him. And he really kind of liked him. And he said, hey, what did you do with all that when you went to medical school? And so he was kind of giving me dropping the bait in the water a bit, if that's what he meant, but that's what it was like for me. And then the next thing was at a dinner party at Larry's place, talking to Fred, who spends his time between L.A. and Nashville, does most of his recording in Nashville. And he said, so I'm about to go to Nashville. And I said, I've never been to Nashville. And he said, that's where people like us do what we do. And it was like, is this guy telling me that I'm in any way like us? Is he saying that this is, you have to maybe understand, or I do, I dreamt about this at those early years, and I was pushing and fantasizing and getting nibbles and stuff. And when I left it behind, I assumed there was no chance ever that I would ever get to work with this kind of scene and develop something
Isn't
like
it
this.
wonderful when you have that moment where you feel like, okay, what I'm doing is not just okay, what I'm doing is good.
Yeah, man. It feels a little, unhumble, but this is the experience. It started like that, and we started talking about doing a project, and he made it very possible for me to do the project. And I sent him a bunch of songs, and it was all working. We were picking out the album. Now, he works with this crew of sort of super musicians. We used to use the term wrecking crew. Every city has, and, there are unlimited great musicians in Nashville. I'm not saying that they're the only ones, but man, are they fantastic. And they've been playing with each other for 20 years, doing these kind of things. So I didn't know what to expect. And first of all, just very few people, would even guess that this is possibly how it works. But this is how it works. You work with the producer, you work with Fred. Fred knows the songs inside out. We talk about what we want to communicate to the musicians. Some charts are made out. And the only guy who's playing is the bass player who made the charts. He's the only one who's heard the songs until you're in the studio. Now, we're in a big studio, and all these musicians come in. They have not heard a thing. And then you play the demo, and you talk to them about what you want, and then they all kind of powwow, and they're talking about how we're going to approach this. And then they kill it. But the thing that I knew was going to happen, because he told me this is how it happens. Okay. What I didn't expect was how much they loved playing the songs.
Wow.
I still get goosebumps. They still contact me about it. They loved the songs. And I'm saying, are you kidding me? Really? So that was the ultimate of that kind of, okay, all right. So
Fantastic.
So we're doing it, right? And so between their great playing, Fred's great production, other stuff happened, the main tracks are laid down by the whole band. Then you bring in the pedal steel and this and that and the background singers and do it. And it all happens pretty quickly. And he just did a marvelous job. So that album's called Bring On the Storm. It does exist on all the places you might look for such an album. You can also come just to my woodstovestudios.com, which I invite especially my Northeast listeners to know about it, because, you might come around the Cape or the Vineyard sometime, and we have concerts here every month, and we record the concerts, by the way, and the whole other thing. And
yeah, talk about that, because that does kind of lead you into the other thing that you do.
Yeah. So here I was now, in this place, and, before and after that great album experience. And I started having regular concerts once a month, generally the first Sunday. First one was Kate Taylor, and it was pretty much exactly 4 years ago. We're celebrating our 4th anniversary on this July 5th, this show on this Sunday. And, it was very well received, having another place, but not just a place, a true listening room. There are a few. There's a place, Pathways on the Island, which is a great true listening room, as opposed to seeing folks in a bar or in a restaurant and, the typical venues that you can generally get work. And people come here just to listen. And I set it up as a recording studio, and I was recording all the shows just to do it anyway. And then about a year into it, had a conversation with P.J. Finn, who's the director of MVY Radio. And, MVY is very much committed to promoting local talent and the community scene. And I was talking to him about what was happening here and wondering whether there might be a way to work together. And he just jumped on it. And it was already kind of, the strategy was already in place. I was already recording the shows. And so about 3 years ago, I started broadcasting the one show that I recorded a month at the end of the month. So I was on the last Sunday of every month at 7 o'clock. And but then things kind of developed, and it's almost been a year. By the fall, we decided to make it weekly. And in order to make it weekly, unless I started doing lots of shows, which I think is more than I'll ever do, although who knows, sometimes I do more than one. But I had a thought that I got support on doing, which is, gee, George, something which you have a bit of experience about. Talking to musicians about their music.
Absolutely.
And what a great thing to do. So the artists that play on a given Sunday, if they're on island, they just come back. If they're off island, I just put them up here for a night. And we just do a deep dive into their recorded music, not what they did here live, and whatever it is they'd like to talk about. And we listen to it together and talk. Mm-hmm. And I've been having a blast doing it.
So tell everybody where, what time, how can they hear?
Okay, this is how. It's broadcast in real time Sundays at 7 p.m. on MVY Radio. Now, that's streamable. If you go to mvyradio.org and you want to hear the show just like you would if you were listening on the radio, there's a listen now tab. Right. But in addition to that, MVY archives the shows.
Beautiful.
I must say it's a little user unfriendly, so I'm going to archive them as well. I'm going to put them on my YouTube channel with a link off of my website.
Fantastic.
But between one or the other or both, people can listen to actually every MVY show, whoever the DJ was, going back many years, and so that's what's going on with the radio show.
That's fantastic.
Nice.
So you're doing all these things that you've always wanted to do.
Yes, sir.
And the beautiful thing, what I see, is that you're giving back to the community. Thanks. Also.
Thanks.
Which is wonderful, because
yeah.
There's so many venues that have closed and so fewer places to play now for the working musician.
Yep.
And anytime you can do something like what you're doing, I commend you for it.
Well, thank you. It's a total joy to be able to do it.
Yeah. I wanted to talk a little bit more about songwriting before I ask you to close us out.
Sure.
Because one of the things that I noticed on your album, which again is fantastic, is all the different genres that you go into. You're not, let's say, not typecast, but you don't pigeonhole yourself into one. And so in the production phase of the album, was any of the talk about a particular song and what genre you should go into? You've got ballads, you've got some country chops, you've definitely got some jazz chops, you got bluegrass.
Little rock and roll.
I have that actually put down here.
The title track, Bring on the Storm, is a bit of a rocker.
Yeah. How do you go about when you sit? Let me ask you this: when you sit down to write or whatever your process is, what goes through your head? Do you are you one of these guys who gets on his iPhone and records little tidbits or something and goes back to them? I remember last year when I met you in the studio, you told me you play your guitar for 4 hours a day.
At least.
At least. So during that time, what happens? Do you come up? Are you always looking for a riff or something like that?
Boy, a lot of wonderful questions in the question.
In the one question.
No, I love it. I love it. I will kind of try and go about it this way. I'm going to actually kind of start with what the first question was. As I was making the album, what were the thoughts about the different genres? And one of the things that made me so comfortable with Fred was he clearly recognized that this is all over the musical landscape. And he said, that's you. He said, what ties it all together is you. So he didn't try and finesse it the way that, if you're thinking the goal here is to sell streams or sell CDs, then most people absolutely say, this is what I'm going for, right? But it was not my goal. If it happened, wonderful, especially if it led to touring.
Who did this for you?
I did it to make a work of art, right?
Yes.
So, and he was all about that. And in no small part because he knows that it's near on impossible to really sell a lot of stuff, no matter how much you try and do it, right? So he didn't push it. The only thing he did was, if I had 2 or 3 songs, for instance, Lazy Joe, I've always loved Lazy Joe, but I had 2 other songs that are sort of similar, country bluesy, swing songs, and he didn't want a third one. But that's not the same as saying we're trying to get this niche. He sort of welcomed everything. And then in terms of my general songwriting process, it's starting to change. But what it was for a really long time, and, this album has songs that I started when I was 17 and I'd written up to 23. For the vast majority of those songs, they all came in dreams.
I remember reading that. And I have to tell you, I'm very angry.
You said that last. You said that last year.
I'm very angry because I hear this from a few artists, not a lot. The woman that I play with, Louise Coombe, woke up one day with a full song and everything, and I looked at her and I really hate you.
Yeah.
So tell us about this.
I'm not sure exactly how I understand it, except, as a psychiatrist kind of thinking in these terms, the unconscious is a big, powerful place. And no matter how schooled you are in music, letting the unconscious come through has a lot to do with successful creativity. But I wasn't schooled. I was almost anti-schooled, where I had forgotten everything I learned. It was a whole part of that way of responding to the not pleasant stuff that happened when I was a kid. And so I'd write songs and not know the chords that I was playing. When I wrote, that jazz song, Our Vineyard Home, I had no idea what chords they were. And so that's cool. But it's also really kind of limiting.
It does.
So you want to do more with that. And
because sometimes you're looking for a change.
You're looking for a change, and you want to have a language to do it. So that's starting to happen. And that last thing you mentioned is definitely a place where a lot of my songs now come from. Riffs that just pop out while I'm playing, but usually surprising. Something, wait a second. And so many of the more recent songs, Bring On the Storm was one.
Yeah.
The 2 new ones that I recorded, I had the chance to go back to Nashville and record one that I'm going to be, closing the 3 songs with, called Every Demon, and another called Here Now, were examples. It came out while playing the guitar. Here Now, even more specifically, an example of a guitar riff defining what's going to happen next, in a more traditional kind of way.
Do you write it all on the piano anymore?
Yes, in the future, right?
Okay.
Because I'm playing so much guitar, but I definitely, it depends on any more. Several of the songs on the album were written on the piano relatively recently, like that "The Man I Might Have Been."
Right, which I wanted to talk about because I actually love that song.
No, thank you.
It really touched me.
Thank you. Well, "The Man I Might Have Been" was a kind of a recap of Lazy Joe. Lazy Joe, I'm 17, saying, don't be afraid, do it. And I kind of put it off. Man I Might Have Been was, I'm doing it. And it came from the reality. What had happened was this studio went up, which was more of a surprise to me than a plan, the way it all came out. And then I got all the recording stuff in, and you're going to hate me. I woke up with, everybody's got a dream and a passion they can call their own. And it just came out about being the man I might have been, right? Now, just going to, take the chance and do it. And lucky, as Bob would say, I can't help it if I'm lucky.
Yeah,
because this is the luckiest thing that could have ever happened. That this all came to place.
It hit me because, in some ways, you and I are similar. Where we kind of put our music career, so to speak, or our music ambitions, on hold. And I'm kind of like doing like the same thing that you're doing,
and
now.
Doing it great. By the way,
making music. Thank you. And we're both doing the same thing. We're conducting interviews. We're giving back to the community.
I feel a little like I'm looking in a mirror right now.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, you're sitting, this is the setup that I use with these mics, sitting here with these chairs when I do the interviews, right? And it clearly there's a...
You're on the other side of it today.
I know. I like it, actually. But there's a place that we've gone to that is a nice place. And like you say, it's a gift,
It is.
It's a gift to the person that gets to express themselves.
It is.
People who get to find out about, artists and
Absolutely.
artistry in general.
I happened upon, I used to have a radio show out of Pauling, New York, on Pauling Public Radio called The Songwriter's Block.
Nice.
And which is basically, I got this opportunity and I took over for a couple of other guys and they were just spinning CDs and drinking bourbon in the studio. And I'm like, I don't want to do that.
Yeah.
I want to interview people. Yeah. And growing up, probably you and I the same way, we listened to AM radio to start off with.
Yep.
But then we started listening to FM radio. Yep. And we listened to WNEW and all these places. And we listened to these DJs conducting interviews.
Yep.
And I loved it.
Yep.
I wanted to know as much as I could about the artist, and that's probably why I'm doing this now.
Great. Yep. Totally with you. Totally with you. And I've said that. I said that to PJ when we started talking about doing the show. I said, I grew up on this, and I've always loved it, and, the opportunity to jump into that world. Yeah, exactly right.
And the thing is also today, this world doesn't exist as much.
Yeah.
There are other podcasts out there, but radio, of course, you guys are lucky up here.
Yeah.
In the Vineyard.
Yeah.
You've got a great radio station with eclectic music, but that is not the norm anymore at all.
I know.
So it just is different. But anyway, I want to thank you for inviting me into your studio to interview you. I've really, really enjoyed this and getting to know you more and listening to your music. And again, tell everybody where they can listen to your music.
Well, for one, they can go to woodstovestudios.com, and if you press on press. Actually, my album's there with a biography. You can stream "Bring on the Storm" if you want to, stream it elsewhere or download it. It's on all the spots, Spotify and Bandcamp and Amazon and anywhere else. I do have 2 new ones that are coming out, and one of them I'm going to play for you now.
Cool. We talk about these streaming platforms, and the last show that I had recorded with my buddy Dave Goldenberg, I came up with a line called "Pennies from Spotify," and we threw it out there when the show airs. We told people, if you write a song called "Pennies from Spotify," we're going to take the best one and we're gonna put it on the air.
I love it.
So yeah, we're going to do that. But I also found out, as of today, this recording is June 30th, and I found out recently that the streaming service Tidal, Tidal, are you familiar with them?
Yeah, I use it a bit, yeah.
You do. So they just came out with something and said there will be no AI music on their platform.
Right on Tidal.
Exactly.
Right on Tidal.
Exactly.
Oh, I'm glad I support them. They're my main listener.
And it's better listening. It's higher fidelity.
It's higher fidelity. That's how I got into it in the first place.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Again, everybody, this is Peter Halperin on Acoustic Northeast, and you're going to close us out with a song.
But not before thanking you every bit as much as you thank me for doing what you're doing, bringing me into it. And I didn't even have to travel. I mean,
Oh, you got off easy.
How much,
you didn't have to come down to Brewster, New York. Thanks, everybody, for listening to Acoustic Northeast. Peter Halperin is going to close us out with a tune, and he's going to intro it. And as he said before, it's a newer tune that he's going to be coming out with soon. So tell us about it, Peter.
So the song is called "Every Demon Fears They Are a Saint." And, we were talking about songwriting process. In some ways, this is the most unusual piece of work that I've ever done. It's hard to put it in words. I don't really know where this song came from. And it took me a little while to accept that it was a song. It's hard to describe, but I'm glad I did.
When the night sweeps down like an angel to shield us from the light, when our tears rain down like they're cannonballs to keep us in the fight, when our greed becomes emptiness and it leads us to restraint, we'll know why every demon fears they are a saint. When our suffering creates such beauty in the masterpiece it paints, when our grief brings back lost memories so distant and so faint, when our prisons set our spirit to find freedom from constraints, we'll know why every demon fears they are the same. So can you hear their prayer? Can you hear their prayer? I've been listening to some music. I hear chords of hope and fear. I hear the dissonance of evil right before graceful love appears. And I'm trying to decipher what it is and what it ain't, and to know why every demon feels they are the same. Why every demon knows they are a saint.
Beautiful. Extremely talented man.
Thank you.
Fantastic.
Wow. This is kind of exciting.
You know, we're lucky,
That's the theme of this, is it not?
you know?
We're sitting here doing exactly what we want to be doing right now,
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
So what else can you
Yeah,
ask
you
for?
can't beat it. You really can't.